We all know them, and we all love them. From classic examples such as Sherlock Holmes, Miss Marple, to more modern-day heroes like Batman, Geralt of Rivia, and the Scooby-Doo gang. Detectives and investigators are as popular as ever. Hello everyone, my name is Martin, and today I am joined by my good friends and co-hosts Anton.
Hello.
And Philip. And today we're taking a look on how to play a good detective or other investigative character in D&D 5e. While playing D&D 5e, it's common to be on the hunt for long-lost artifacts, to try to expose secret cults, or find out who's behind all these evil schemes in your campaign or adventure. And with the recent release of Candlekeep Mysteries, we thought it's fitting to talk a bit about how we would play a detective-like character in D&D 5th edition. Okay, so first and foremost, I think we should talk a bit about what we like to see in a detective-like character overall in fiction. What are some common traits that are shared between different detectives, and what are some more unique things that you can think about if you would create a character like this?
Well, I would say something about their skills being really above everyone else in some way. They have almost a superpower that makes them like really able to to find out the truth or see clues or deduce things.
Yeah, and even if their skills aren't, their skills aren't per se, just the way they think has to be different enough from everyone else to see connections that no one else can see.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be able to piece together a situation that no one else can piece together in some way. However, they do that.
Yeah, like you bring up, a detective character really sticks out in most stories they are in. I mean, Sherlock Holmes, for example, is a really peculiar man, and so is Batman, one could say.
Yeah, I mean, even Dr. House is a kind of detective.
Absolutely.
Really.
Oh, definitely.
So, oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, just these like eccentric characters that really think in a very different manner from everyone around them.
Yeah, exactly. Being a bit peculiar, I think, is a very, very good trait for a detective
It's common,
character.
at least.
Yeah, it's
common. Something that goes for a lot of protagonists, but especially for detectives, is I think that a lot of them have some kind of they always get into trouble, right? They always stick their noses where they don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that is a character trait somehow, that either you're unlucky and you just get dumped into, bad situations that you're not prepared for, or you have a tendency to stick your nose into things and, go just a little deeper and just push a little harder.
Yeah, like the nosy people are more like the people that actually want to become detectives because they just like it.
Yeah, and I think that part in the narratives with detectives are very contradictory, because they should also be discreet, like as part of their job, but they have to be nosy, and I guess in a lot of examples that brings them into trouble. I guess.
Yeah.
When I think of a detective as well, I think one of the most important things they have to be good at is to gather information, right? That is the core of their job in some ways, right? And do you have some... Because, I mean, you can gather information in different ways. You can interrogate people, like stalk people. You can do research in a library, etc., etc. Do you have any information gathering situations that sticks out to you?
I mean, you can always like break into people's houses at night. Like search for stuff. So I guess like a thief esque character would also be something good for that.
Yeah, so breaking the law to keep the law.
Breaking the law to keep it, yeah. Like they do that all in criminal dramas all the time. Like the police go, "Oh, we think this might be it, but we can't tell anyone. But we go break into their house anyway, because then we'll be able to prove it."
And I mean, you could also be a private detective just working for your own game, or or gain or for private employers, and then you don't even have to be on the side of the law necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. I tend to imagine most detectives are the hero kind of type, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right?
Not necessarily. It's hard. It's hard for me to think of a true detective kind character that is a villain, but they often have nemesis. Like they often have equally brilliant foils, like Moriarty or
The Joker.
someone like that, or the Joker. Yeah. Brilliant in their own way, I suppose. Maybe that's also a fun characteristic to think about for a detective. Someone who can foil their impeccable problem-solving skill to challenge them.
Indeed. Another thought that occurred to me when I was thinking about what a detective character is to me, or what signifies a detective character, is that they are usually very courageous, right? Of course they can be scared and so on, but they dare to kind of take risks and expose themselves for the information they're looking for, or for the person or object or whatever they are trying to uncover. Maybe with the exception of Shaggy and Scooby, but most other detectives that I can think of, they are not easily scared, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
They kind of have to be thrill seekers to an extent to get into that line of work, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that also ties to most detectives having some other, like, personal motivation that drives them as well. Like, it's not a lot of fictional detectives that are just doing the job for the job's sake, right? They usually have some history with trauma or something other that spurs them on.
Like either they have a really strong sense of justice if it's criminals they're up against, or maybe they have some kind of really large personal stake in mysteries. Kind of like, I'm thinking kind of National Treasure. Or the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
They are kind of detectives, but they are a different kind of detective.
Yeah, definitely.
Even Indiana Jones, right, would be an example, kind of.
In some ways, I mean, if we broaden the definition to, like, you take different pieces of information and then you connect them in some way, then sure.
Yeah. You touched on something there, Philip, with this kind of sense of justice as a motivation, and I thought a lot of times revenge seems like a common theme as well, right? So I think playing a detective character in D&D, you could have a very flawed character, as we touched on earlier, and you could either be very lawful and goody two-shoes, but you could also, I mean, not tread on the path of justice as easily, I guess. So I think this thought of playing a detective doesn't have to be very narrow, actually. I think it can be pretty varied.
Agreed.
Another theme that we have in D&D that doesn't exist in the real world, or in a lot of these examples of fiction that we have brought up, is magic, right? Sherlock Holmes, as far as I know, doesn't dabble in the dark arts, but perhaps the Scooby-Doo team does, and Geralt does as well. Do you see any, like, because magic is so illogical and doesn't always leave clear traces of information and so on, how would a detective be affected by the existence of magic in the world, you think?
That depends entirely on the brilliance of the criminal.
Yeah. And I mean, the detective lives in a world where magic is logical, like where magic is a part of their job. So they have to find some way to adapt to that, I suppose, either by, finding traces of magic that are typical for certain kinds of spells, or finding like reagents or components on the ground, like stuff like that, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that could be like a really cool like a way to put in red herrings, etc. in as a DM into a D&D adventure setting and so on. And magic could also be a helpful tool, right?
Definitely for information gathering.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Do any of you have anything else to add on what we picture in our heads when we think of a detective, you think?
I mean, some of them, in the more modern interpretations anyway, are somehow also good at fighting. It's not something that I would like traditionally connect to a detective with, in the Poirot sense, for instance.
Yeah.
But like in the modern depictions of Sherlock Holmes, for instance, he's always somehow really good at picking apart people's fighting styles and things like that. And Batman is obviously a martial artist
Yeah.
of a high skill. So that's something that I like. That also pops up into my mind, even if it's not typically connected to the detective stereotype as much as maybe a protagonist. But if you're a protagonist acting on your own, maybe you need to be able to hold your own in dangerous situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that thought of having like some combative skills as a to fall back on if things go south, like if you are uncovered or if you find yourself in a sticky situation, kind of. So that's a very good point. I agree. Okay. Then I thought we could move on, because now we have discussed some themes that we think is related to the detective or like investigator types of characters. And how does those translate into D&D 5e? Like, what tools do we have in both character creation but also for DMs who have detective-like characters in their player parties to use in the game, to kind of get these feelings of the criminal dramas or thrillers or suspense series that we know from like books and detective movies and so on?
It's a big question, of course. But I mean, when it comes to characters, as you mentioned, there are a lot of different ways to make a detective style character. If you look deep enough, I think you could make one out of almost any, or pretty much any class. But they would be vastly different types of detectives.
Yeah.
But certainly you could look at just to give an example, the skills that you can pick from and skill proficiencies. There are some that more obviously lend themselves to a detective style character than others.
Certainly.
Perhaps your performance skill is not going to be quite as important as an investigation skill, if I just grab one example. But of course you could use it creatively, but investigation is very close at hand.
Yeah,
obviously.
And I like that you bring that up with skills, and I think that because that is used a lot in the game when you interact with the world around you, your skills and your skill proficiencies and so on. And like if you each would name 3 skills that would stick out to you the most if you would create a detective-like character, which 3 would you pick?
Investigation, perception, and insight.
Do you care to explain a little bit?
Well, they all are actually like in a theme, spotting clues, or in some kind. Like investigation and perception is more like finding the actual objects, but insight would be finding out when people are lying or when they are withholding information.
Yeah, exactly. And perception maybe more to like the more in the moment perceiving your surroundings, etc., when you don't have time to do a thorough investigation, right? That eye for detail, kind of.
Yeah.
How about you, Anton? Would you pick the same? Do you have any other opinion?
I would pick the same, but maybe I think that insight could be tied with survival, depending on the type of investigator you're going for, because of survival's ability to discern tracks.
That's true.
Which could be very useful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also think that skills like stealth should not be looked over as well. I think you often find yourself where you have to be very sneaky.
Yeah, maybe even things that allow you to, make your way, such as acrobatics or sleight of hand, could also be useful. But it seems like dexterity lends itself better to this kind of stereo or archetype compared to athletics, for instance, which is more loud and less inconspicuous, perhaps.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to go back a bit even to the more basic things about D&D ability scores, like the 6 we have: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Do you have any opinion which, or a couple of these that are most characteristic for a detective in D&D? Like you said, Anton, what defines a detective can be so broad, but
I want to say wisdom, because intuition is very important, and wisdom stands. It has a lot to do with, in my, well, as I see it, wisdom has a lot to do with intuition and getting a gut feeling for something, and kind of, being street smart in a way. Not perhaps in a social interaction kind of way, but being more wise to the world, if you will. And being able to read your surroundings, this is a big part of that, and a big part of being a detective. So I think wisdom is important.
Yeah. Do you
I
agree,
was going
Philip?
to say intelligence, but I was very, very quickly proving something else. I was like, yeah, wisdom. That's really important.
And I would also think charisma has its place as well. I definitely agree that wisdom might be the number one, closely followed by intelligence, but the mental stats, so to speak, seemingly sticks out, right?
Perhaps.
Yeah. I would like to play Abe, the dull detective. Has high strength, dexterity, and con, but not anything else. We touched a little bit upon magic earlier, and I wonder if there is any spells, official spells in the game that you think would be must-haves for a detective.
Well, there is an entire school that's called divination magic, which is information gathering.
That's fair.
Pretty much.
Yep.
So scrying would be a huge one.
I mean, imagine if you're being hired to find a person and you have access to locate person. Makes it a little easier if you have a general area to look in.
Yeah, that's the detective's wet dream, I guess.
Yeah. But other ones that are like more high level, like is it called Find the Way? I don't remember what exactly it's called.
I think it's Find the Way,
Yeah, or Find the Path or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a spell that allows you to unerringly guide yourself to a location. Which could be very useful.
Indeed, and I think because usually maybe you or I think it's also common not to know the exact location that you need to go to, and that brings my mind to the more like charming kind of spells, like the enchantment spells, school of spells, for also used for information gathering, of course, but more with the social interactions and so on. I think like charm person, suggestion, and so on could be really helpful as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like anything that allows you to gather information regardless of how, like comprehend languages is also wonderful, or something like enhance ability to increase whatever you need increased at that moment.
Yeah, but I think it's so fun that we bring up all these examples, and I don't think we have a single evocation spell, which might be the most popular in game, your fireballs, etc. And I really like the idea of playing a character that can find use in so many more of the DM dependent spells, kind of. And I think if you're in the right group or in the right campaign, it could be very satisfactory to play a character like that, right?
Agreed.
Last thing I thought mechanics wise is about equipment. because of course we have all the fantastic magical items in D&D and so on, but we also have a lot of mundane equipment. Like I think some fan favorites are like caltrops, some line and small bells, etc. to put alarms and so on. Is there any equipment that you know of in D&D that is a must-have for a detective?
I do like the hooded lantern.
Yeah, that's
which
a
is
good
kind
one.
of a fantasy version of a flashlight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're talking tools too, thieves' tools would be extremely
Definitely.
good to have, or like disguise or forgery kit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also great. Also great. There is an item that is kind of a looking glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That allows you to look across great distances, which could be very useful.
Yeah.
I don't remember what there's. I don't remember the name of it, but there's a rope that you can control with your mind.
Yes, the magic, the what's it called? The rope of. Yeah, the rope you can control that can move.
Yeah,
and
you can
tie
control
itself.
it and tie it to.
I think it's the rope
It
of
might
climbing.
be just rope of
It
climbing.
might be, yeah.
I think you got that in your campaign, or in my.
I just don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean there is a lot of great examples for like common or uncommon magic items that could resemble like gadgets. You know, the spy gadgets, like the extendable stilts and the parachute kind of. So
yeah, for sure. You can make like that's almost like a secret agent.
Yeah,
kind of detective.
That would be real cool. I can't believe we forgot to mention like James Bond. Of course, he's a spy, but he's kind of a detective as well, right?
Yeah, sort of.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. And any significant magic items that you would like to have as a detective?
The eyes of minute seeing are a favorite of mine. We have never had them in a game, but I like them a lot. They're basically goggles that give you advantage on looking at things very, very close, like investigating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like these, the looking glass.
They're like the multi-layered glass kind of goggles, and I think that would be perfect for a detective-style character.
That's cool.
Wand of Secrets?
Yeah, that's probably a good bet as well. Like the Lantern of Revealing as well, I guess.
Yeah. Those are very good.
Yeah. I thought of like if you would stock up on potions, I think unless you have access to it through spells, like potions of speak with dead or speak to the dead and so on could be really useful as well. Like to investigating a crime scene where there are corpses and just being able to pop a potion.
Oil of etherealness.
Yeah.
You can just pass through buildings.
Yeah. There is a lot of good examples, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, certainly.
So about role-playing a detective like character, like interacting with NPCs, interacting with the rest of the group, how would you role-play a detective like character? Would you be very intelligent and condescending to your party members, or would you be withholding information for them until you can reveal it all in a detective-like manner? Like, Philip, you are not the perpetrator.
And like in other times, I would want to withhold and like do it like, haha, here's the big reveal. But in D&D, no, it's a team effort, really. And it doesn't really sit well with the game itself, I think.
I think I might want to take it for like the opposite spin and try to have a character that's like competitive to the point that as soon as they figure something out, they just like blurt it out so they can be first with discovering it.
Well, yeah.
Kind of building a rivalry with someone else in the group, perhaps. Being like, I found out about this first. Me.
Yeah, because isn't that the case? Like, even though not all characters in a party might be created with the intention of being detectives or investigators, it's a part of D&D, like the investigation, the uncovering mysteries, so much that almost all characters are involved with it anyway, right? So I like this thought of a competition, kind of, or working together, sharing information and working together, like you said.
It could be a friendly competition too.
Yeah, I feel like in a D&D game, the most fun of the mystery would be like these discussions Like we have a lot of clues and like how do these fit together? And
Speculation.
then you just spitball ideas.
Yeah.
And like, oh wow, it might be like this or it might be like that. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
That's the best part for a DM as well, to like get all these great speculations that you can just steal and use for real.
heard a lot about those.
That was the way all along, totally.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the role play of a detective?
Well, you have to kind of be. Well, we did say that you're kind of nosy, and you want to get into things. You can't play as passively. When we're playing a detective.
Yeah, but you could definitely role play it very differently, and I mean, I would encourage people to kind of try to go against stereotypes a little bit, just like maybe in one aspect of your character, like maybe your character is great at investigating, but they always do so by like happenstance when you role play it, so they like act disinterested, and then they happen to stumble across the right clue because they're still really good at investigating, but
that is Abe the dull detective. That is
so
Abe.
they're not really good at investigating.
I'm swinging
they're
back to this
lucky.
person. What?
So they're just lucky, not really good at investigating.
I mean, that's all down to role play, isn't it?
Yeah, it is like flavor wise.
I think that would be great
exactly,
fun.
Exactly.
Great fun to have a character like that in a party. Well, I think this has been a great discussion, and I thought we would round it off by presenting some example characters that we would make if we would create a character with all this in mind. And we have all thought about one character each from different classes, and who wants to start off? Anton, do you want to have a go?
I want to go after Philip.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Philip
can
can start then.
I mean,
I think mine is a little less orthodox.
Yeah, I always mean Max. No, so I've chosen the Rogue, the Inquisitive subclass. Wow, big surprise.
It's in the name.
Yeah, it's in the name. But they do get, like, rogues, they are dexterous by default, and they do get some, they do benefit from wisdom and intelligence too, when searching for traps or whatnot. So it kind of fits for a rogue to be a detective. But specifically, the Inquisitive rogue, they do get the features eye for deceit and eye for detail, which increases, like, eye for deceit. That's like reliable talent, except that like if you roll a 7 or lower, it counts as an 8 at least. So if you have a high insight, you all never fail with your insight. So this character idea it's kind of like a mix between Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes and The Mentalist. Because have you seen The Mentalist? This guy, he's like behaviorist, like a really, really good behaviorist. So he talks to people and he just finds out truths and lies, and like, okay, they're doing this thing, so that means they have that kind of relationship, which is really weird because of how this person is acting. So that's kind of his detective thing.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
And eye for detail, the feature, you can use perception and investigation as a bonus action mid-combat, so you can deduce things very quickly. And the Sherlock Holmes thing is that you can look at an opponent's tactics and way to fight, and always be able to get sneak attack against them, even if you don't have advantage, because you have just gotten this person down to fine point. Like, I know exactly what you're gonna do.
Yeah, that's perfect. Very reminiscent of the movies.
Like that feature was like made to fit that.
Yeah.
Fit that
that's a great example. Maybe I should go next then, Anton, and we'll save yours for last. Go out with a bang. Yeah.
You go.
Okay. I would create a cleric. I think I love clerics, and one of their main stat is wisdom, which we talked about earlier being a great stat for a detective. And I think you could maybe be an acolyte of some god of truth or god of justice to kind of role play having an obsession or a sacred mission to like reveal secrets or hidden like villains or villainous groups and so on. And I would be creating a cleric of the knowledge domain, because they are real cool. They are good at gathering information. Like, for starters, they get to know 2 more languages, I think, and they get extra skill proficiencies within a specific set of skills that they also get expertise within. And I think, as we talked about earlier as well, that skills can be really important for your detective character. And moreover, they get some features where they learn to read thoughts, and at later levels they can see visions from the past related to objects or areas that you study for a while. So
that's certainly very, very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a spiritualist detective, maybe like the medium or something.
Yeah.
And lastly, we also touched upon the divination school of spells. All clerics gain a lot of divination spells, and the knowledge domain is no exception. We have examples like augury, zone of truth, locate object, locate creature, scrying, and commune, which are all great like information gathering spells. But then I thought that clerics are a bit clunky, usually if you wear chainmail, so I think I would maybe make this like a dexterity wisdom cleric. Would be pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, Anton, I'm interested to hear. What is your detective like?
Well, okay, so I figured that, like, I wanted to prove that any class can be a detective if they really want to, right? So I went with the barbarian.
Yeah.
Of course.
Which is perhaps not the most classic choice for a detective, but hear me out. In the right circumstance, the barbarian can be really effective, especially if it's within a party that is more intellect-based. This particular barbarian would be one that at level 3 would pick the path of the totem warrior, which allows them to bond to animal spirits and take on some of their characteristics. At level 3, they gain the ability to ritual cast speak with animals and beast bond, which, while slow, could allow this barbarian to use small animals around them to act as spies or ask them what has transpired in that location, as far back as 1 day, according to the spell. I would pair this with making this character. I went back and forth a little bit, but it would probably be good to make it like a forest gnome that can just from the get-go talk to small animals and kind of is friendly with them. So it could help them kind of persuade this rat to sneak into this warehouse and see what's up inside without stepping foot there themselves. At level 6, these barbarians get to pick different aspects of the beast, and one of them are eagle eyes, which allows them to see up to 1 mile, and they see as clearly as if they're looking from a distance of 100 feet, and they can see details very clearly from a long way away. And they also do not have disadvantage on perception checks in dim light, which is something that everyone else, I think, almost gets. Even with dark vision, you still have disadvantage in dim light, and this would make them very good at finding details even in darkness, provided they are a character with dark vision. Finally, barbarians do have the ability to kind of fend for themselves very well. They can be quite self-sufficient compared to some other classes. They're not squishy, or, you know, if they're pinned down, they can hold their own using their rage. And they also get danger sense, which makes it easier for them to avoid traps and dangerous effects that might spring upon them if they're investigating a dangerous location of some kind. Finally, to kind of make this even more effective, I would at some point choose the observant feat, which would let this barbarian from 1 mile away read lips and discern what people are saying from 1 mile away.
Yeah, that's Awesome. That's a cool synergy.
If they share a language, of course. So you would have to like be tactical in which languages you pick, or have someone to cast tongues on you,
Yeah.
or comprehend languages or something. But yeah, that could be something interesting. You could also hear me out. You could also pick the linguist feat at an even higher level to
Ah.
get access to more. No, okay, now we're going too far. But I think the combination of reading lips and being able to see really far is a pretty cool one.
Yeah,
And
that's
especially
nice.
when you can do it in darkness as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I must admit, Barbarian would not be my first choice of class, but now this kind of gnomish Jim Carrey, kind of Ace Ventura character springs to mind,
Yes,
or Dr. Dolittle.
Exactly.
Barbarian gnome Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I think we're gonna round off here, and for you who's listening, if you've enjoyed this video, we would really appreciate a like and subscription, or if you have some other opinions or agree with us, that you would leave a comment below. It helps out a lot, and we're interested in hearing what you think. And with that, I think we'll sign off. Have a good time, and until next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.